In this video, I'm going to attempt to simplify the notification center, which is often a very overlooked, underutilized feature that started back in iOS 6 and is carried through to iOS 7. So if you've ever flicked from the top of your screen down to the bottom by accident, you might have gotten this screen curtain which kind of overlays the home screen. Now on this, you can see there's a bunch of information, looks like stocks and calendar and stuff like that, and I have options across the top to look at today, all, missed, and you might have never had any idea of what those things were. And if you look at the very bottom of the screen, you see an arrow, and if you flick up, then you can get rid of that. You might be like, well, what was that? Or you might have used Notification Center in the past and might just want to be able to dig in a little bit deeper to make it a little bit more streamlined for what you want to use it for. Either way, if I go into the settings menu, you can see that in the middle of the screen I have a Notification Center menu. Now if I go ahead and click that, and I flick through, you can see I've got a lot of options that I can do and change with the Notification Center. I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm going to talk about accessing the Notification Center on the lock screen. If I want to be able to pull that screen curtain down on the lock screen, then I have to make sure that on the settings menu I have that notifications view turned on, which you can see it is. The Today view is a little bit of a shortcut to whatever's happening on that particular day across apps that have to do with particular days, such as calendars, reminders, stuff like that. So if on the lock screen I want to be able to access the Today view in the Notifications Center, then I want to have that on as well. Now, I can decide what actually appears in the Today view. So that's the next section of the menu. If I want a summary of the day, a calendar day view, if I want to look at reminders and stocks, and I want to have the ability to check out tomorrow as well, that's all encompassed within the Today view. Now let me flick the Notification Center down, and you can see that on the top left, I have Today is grayed out. That means it's selected. Now, if I change so that the Today view has none of these things, and I flick down the Notification Center, you can see that all of those options are gone. I don't have any of my calendar events, any of the reminders, nothing about stocks, etc. I just have what the actual date is, what is today. So you can then go ahead and decide whether you want a summary of the day, if you want to be able to check out your calendar really quickly in the Notification Center, have a quick look at some of your reminders that have to do with that day. Stocks is probably one that most people leave off. And if you want to have an idea of what's happening tomorrow as well, you could turn that on. Now when I flick down, you can see that I have a calendar view of any events that are happening today. Now on this iPod Touch, which belongs to the Special Education Department, I don't have any events scheduled. But I do have some of our previous reminders that I have set, and it's reminding me of those. And there you can see on the right-hand side I have the future dates, or the date that those were scheduled for. And tomorrow, I have a tomorrow view, and if the calendar had anything inputted into it, you would see those things as well there. Now, the next section of the Notification Center menu is how I want to view my notifications. Do I want to sort them by the time that they came in, or do I want to sort them manually based on the order that I give them? After that, this is where it can get complicated, but I think with a little bit of investigation and a little bit of time, you can really master this section to include and not include what you want in the Notification Center. I'm going to use reminders as my example. So right now you can see in the Include menu, all of these apps are included to appear in the Notification Center. And I have none that are set to not include. Now, your iPod knows which apps can be and which can't be included in the Notification Center, so you don't have to do any investigation of whether it can or can't. When you go into this menu, it will either be there or it won't. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Reminders. And this is a pretty standard menu that you're going to see within each of those apps. Now, the very first thing that we can decide about when it comes to these apps is what type of alert are we going to get if the app needs to tell us something. So most people are familiar when you get a text message on an iPhone or a text message, an alert on your iPod, what it kind of does. And in reality, there's really only three things that it can do. On the left-hand side, you can see here that I can select none. Now, if I select none, then whether the app wants to tell me something or not, it doesn't alert me in any possible way. If I click banners, then what you might have seen before is that at the top of the screen, I get a little banner that flips down, maybe gives me a little preview of something, and then disappears on its own. If I touch the banner, I actually go into that app where I can go into more details with whatever the notification was. But ultimately, if I'm on an app and the banner comes down, it gives me a quick glance at whatever the notification was, and then it goes away on its own. If I click alerts, which most people don't usually have things on alert by default, I am required to touch the screen on the alert before it will go away. So I might need to press close, reply, ignore, whatever the alert is for that particular app. It gives me a preview of it, and then I actually have to touch the screen to make it go away. So depending on the app, will depend on what type of notification or alert style you want for that app. And that is really something that you can grasp through trial and error. Try a certain style. If you find that you're getting a lot of alerts and it's really annoying to have to actually decline them or accept them all the time, then maybe you want to just have it on banners so that they'll go away on their own. If you have an app that you don't want to ever see alerts because they're just always constantly happening, like updates or things that are within the app that are notifying you, then maybe you want to turn that off. Now, that doesn't mean that things don't change in that app. It doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to go check those alerts. It just means that while you're on the device, it won't actually pop up and alert you of anything. The next section has two sort of menu options that we can change. A badge app icon is really just a fancy way of saying under mail in the top right corner, whenever you've seen that little red 1, or under messages, maybe you have a few text messages, so it has a 2, or there's an update to the software, so the settings menu has a red 1 in the top right corner. That's what a badge app icon is. So if you have an app that's going to send you an alert and you want it to track the number of those things like email, because if I went to my home screen right now, under reminders, you can see that I have a little 2 there. So those are badge app icons. Now, if I go back into settings and turn badge app icon off, and then I go back to my reminders app, you can see they've disappeared. Because maybe for whatever reason, I didn't want the app to keep a tally of all of the alerts that it was trying to send me. But that also goes to prove that if I do have that on, but I set my alerts to none, I still get a visual tally of the alerts that were sent to the app. I just don't get an overlaying message or banner when they actually occurred. So that's really a personal preference. Now, I can also change, when my alert comes in, the sound. And in iOS 7, we received a whole brand new package of sounds, and it's up to you which one you choose for that. Coding your sounds based on the type of alert will help you realize or learn very quickly which alert you received and whether you maybe want to pull the device out of your pocket even to answer it. If you knew it was something that always belonged to the mail, then you would be thinking in your head, oh, I got a mail, but I don't need to pull it out right now because I know that sound. Now, in terms of the next section of the alerts, this is where you can turn the presence of that app in the notification center on and off. So because I'm in my list, which are all the apps that are included in the notification center, obviously the reminders app is set to on besides show in notification center. I can also choose how many of those alerts I want to preview or see within the notification center. Now, different apps are going to have a different number of things that it can preview and a different length of things it can preview, etc. But if I don't want reminders to appear anymore in my notification center, then I'm going to want to go ahead and flick that off. Now, if I go back to my list of things that are in the notification center, you can see that reminders is now not included. So I'm going to give you an example of an app that I don't want in my notification center at all. And it's the one here on the screen that says apps gone free. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, because Apps Gone Free is an app that is constantly getting new alerts because it's constantly updating the free apps that it offers. So I'm going to go ahead and actually say I don't want those popping up all the time anymore. I will go into the app when I'm ready to, when I want to look at those things. Now if I go back, you can see Apps Gone Free is not showing up in the notification center. But if I definitely want it to keep track of how many new apps it's offering, I got to make sure that badge app icon is set to on. Because if I turn that off, then I won't even have that little visual in the top right corner of the app to know whether or not new apps are available, etc. So I would want to leave that on for that particular app. We can really streamline our notification center by getting rid of apps that we don't use at all. Some of these are set in there by default, like Passport and Game Center, which are maybe apps that you use and maybe they're apps that you're not. But you get to decide what shows up in the notification center, and you get to decide what sound it makes, how many of it shows, etc., etc. You can really customize this section. I think one of the easiest things to do is honestly get rid of everything in the notification center and then go to your Do Not Include list and start looking through the apps that you recognize as ones that you use and decide which ones you want to have put back in and how you want them to appear. I know for me that I don't have mail on this iPod, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I don't need App Store notifications. And I definitely don't need FaceTime notifications on here. I'm not texting, this is an iPod Touch. So maybe those three that I've left there for argument's sake, I'm gonna go ahead and leave those in my notification center. But within each of those, you can see I've got some different options. Dropbox is in the notification center, but it's not doing a banner or an alert at all. It's set to none, and I can tell that if I go in there, I can see that none is selected. Whereas Photos, Badges is set to on. It's going to make a sound if Photos app gets a new notification, and it's going to give me a banner alert at the top of the screen. Calendar is set to have the badges as well as the alerts. Now remember, alerts require an action before you can proceed, so you have to actually interact with that notification in order to get it to go away or to reply to it, etc. And calendar is something that can be very handy to have on the notification center, because if you have things in your calendar and you're on your lock screen, for instance, or your home screen, you can just flick down from the top and get a quick look at whatever's happening at that day, and also in the future, in the next 24 hours with the tomorrow menu. So notification center can be very overwhelming at first, but if you head into the settings menu and start playing around with which apps are included in it and how they're presented within the notification center, it's actually a very nice little shortcut to be able to access the information that you want with just the flick of a finger. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us.